Before we dive into the main topic, please take a moment to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like this podcast, and leave a comment to support the channel. Your engagement truly helps.
It really does. It keeps the lights on and allows us to keep doing these deep dives.
Precisely. Okay, so let's get into it. Today we're doing something a little different. We're not looking at, a tech trend or some big historical event.
No.
We're looking at something that is, well, literally with you right now. You're actually trapped inside of it.
That sounds a bit ominous when you put it like that.
I mean, it's true, isn't it? We're taking a tour of the vessel we all live in, the human body. More specifically, we're looking at the vocabulary of the body.
Right.
How we map it out in English, how it moves, and frankly, how it communicates without us saying a single word. Our source for this is a text called The Body and Movement.
Yeah, and at first glance, you might think, okay, this is just a standard vocab builder, maybe for B1 level English learners. It covers the basics, arms, legs, face. But when you actually read it, like we have, it's doing something a bit more interesting than just labeling parts on a diagram. It's really mapping out how we exist in the world.
That's a great way to put it, because words are just labels for reality, right? If you don't have the right word for a part of your body or a specific movement, you lose a little bit of resolution, I guess.
Exactly. And the source text is so interesting because it just strips away all the medical jargon. We're not talking about the mandible or the epidermis.
Right. No phalanges here.
None of that. We're focusing on the functional words. Chin, skin, toes. These are the words you need to describe yourself to a friend, not to a surgeon.
Which honestly can be surprisingly hard when you're put on the spot. It's like, you have a face, but do you know the specific word for the part between your hairline and your eyebrows?
Or the joint that connects your foot to your leg.
Yes.
We just take it for granted until, you have to explain where something hurts.
Totally. So our mission for this deep dive is to build that map. We're going to construct the human body, maybe from the outside in, and look at anatomy, breathing, facial expressions, and silent communication.
A full tour of the biological machine.
It is. So let's start with the packaging, the wrapper. The source material begins right at the surface with the skin.
The skin. Our largest organ, though we rarely think of it that way. The text calls it the fundamental covering, the outer part of the body.
Which is true, but a little reductive. But what I found interesting here is that right after defining it, the source gives a warning. It doesn't talk about lotion or tattoos. It says, and I'm quoting, "Too much sun is bad for your skin."
Yeah, isn't that interesting? In a whole text about vocabulary, that's the one piece of medical advice they decided to put in there. It's like, in the hierarchy of things to know about skin, UV damage is number one.
A little health tip with a language lesson. And I mean, that's a universal truth. You could be anywhere speaking any language, and too much sun is bad is still true.
Absolutely.
So we have this outer layer, the skin. But let's zoom in on the interface, the part we actually look at when we're talking to someone, the head and the face.
Right. Let's visualize the map of the face. The source breaks it down into very specific territories, almost like a landscape.
Okay, let's trace it. We'll start at the top, the forehead.
The upper section. Above the eyes, below the hair. Simple.
Then we come down to the sides, the cheeks. Now, here's a question. Why do we distinguish the cheeks? Why did they get their own special name?
Well, structurally, they define the shape of the face. But I think functionally, they're the canvas for emotion. You blush on your cheeks lift when you smile.
Oh, that's a good point. You don't really blush on your forehead.
Not unless you're really, really embarrassed. The cheeks are the signal flare.
Okay, moving down. The bottom bracket, the chin.
Right, providing that structure for the jaw.
Right.
And then, of course, the lips. And finally, holding this whole heavy thing up, you have the neck.
Forehead, cheek, chin, lips, neck. It sounds simple, but just imagine trying to describe someone without those 5 words. He had a large bottom face part.
It just doesn't work. Precision is key, especially between, say, chin and cheek. Learners can mix those up, but if you point to your cheek and say, "My chin hurts," you're in trouble.
Very true. Okay, let's travel south. Leaving the head, moving into the upper body. This is where the machinery gets more mechanical.
This is the structure for interaction,
Wow.
for lifting. We start with the shoulder, connecting the arm to the torso.
And then the main front section, the chest, the source also mentions the breast in this area.
Correct. But let's focus on the arm for a second because the source really highlights the hinges, the engineering of it. You got the elbow in the middle.
The lever.
Yeah, and then the wrist connecting the arm to the hand.
The wrist is so underappreciated until you sprain it. It does so much work. But speaking of the hand, the source zooms in on one specific digit. It doesn't list all the fingers. It specifically mentions the thumb.
The thumb. And this is a great point. Why do you think a B1 level text bothers to distinguish the thumb from the other fingers?
I'm guessing because it's the MVP of the hand?
Basically, it's the opposable digit. It lets us grip things, hold a pen, text on our phones. It's the tool of civilization. So linguistically, it's not just another finger.
That's a distinction that really trips people up.
It does. In some languages, they're all the same word. But in English, if you say, I have 5 fingers, a biologist might say, well, actually, you have 4 fingers and a thumb. The thumb gets its own name.
VIP status. I like it.
It's earned it.
So we've got the upper body mapped out. Shoulder, chest, breast, elbow, wrist, thumb. Now let's move to the core, the middle section.
The center of gravity. The source points out 3 key areas here. You have the waist, that sort of narrowing part of the torso.
Hopefully narrowing. But waist and hip are 2 words people use interchangeably, but they're completely different places, right?
Totally different. The waist is the soft part where you bend. The hip is bone. It's the structure below the waist.
So if you're measuring for pants, you really need to know this difference.
Crucial difference. And then at the back, the bottom.
Right. Waist, hip, bottom. The triad of the lower torso. Okay, but now we have to get mobile. The landing gear, the legs and feet.
And this is another area where learners can get confused. So moving down the leg, the big hinge is the knee.
The leg's elbow, basically.
That analogy works, but then you get down to the foot and you have the ankle.
Okay, let's pause there. The ankle, that's the joint, the part that connects the leg to the foot.
Precisely, it pivots. But the back part of your foot, the part that hits the ground at the rear, that's the heel.
Ah, okay. So ankle's about movement, heel's about impact.
That's a good way to think about it.
A good rule of thumb.
Huh. Or rule of toe, which brings us to the last part. The source mentions the toe. And this links back to our discussion about the hand.
Right. On the hand, we have fingers and a thumb, but on the foot.
Just toes. We don't have a foot thumb. Even the big toe is just a big toe.
It's funny, isn't it? The hand is so complex we name all the parts. The foot is just toes.
Unless something has gone very wrong, you do not have thumbs on your feet. It's a key separation in English vocabulary. Hand equals thumb, foot equals toe.
So we built the mannequin. We have the skin, face, upper body, core, legs. But it's just a statue until you turn on the power. We need to talk about the engine, the physiology of breath.
The mechanics of life itself. The source asks a simple question: how do we get air in? And the answer is just as simple. People breathe through their nose or their mouth.
Simple enough. But here's where it got really interesting for me. The source throws a number at us, a statistic.
Yes, this caught my eye too. It says we breathe in and out about 12 to 15 times a minute.
12 to 15 times. When you say it like that, it sounds kind of low. But if you do the math, that's almost 900 times an hour. Nearly 20,000 breaths a day.
It's the relentless rhythm of life. It just never stops. And what I like is that it moves the learner from just labeling a nose to understanding a process. It's not just a noun, it's a cycle.
It makes you conscious of it, doesn't it? Like, I'm thinking about my breathing right now just because we're talking about it.
And now everyone listening is too.
Sorry about that. But it's wild to think that this is the background process for everything else we do.
Absolutely.
Okay, the machine is running, it's breathing 15 times a minute. Now, what about the display screen? How do we show the world what's happening inside? Let's talk about facial expressions.
This is where anatomy meets psychology. The text links specific movements to specific feelings.
Let's start with the positive one, happiness.
The primary signal is smiling. People smile when they're happy. That's the baseline. But, and this is a really key nuance, it also says people smile to be polite.
Oh, that is such an important distinction, the polite smile. We all know that one. It's the smile you give when you pass a stranger in the hallway.
It's a social lubricant. And that's a deep insight for a language text. It's teaching you that body language isn't just about raw emotion. It's also about social signaling.
So smiling goes from pure joy all the way to awkward obligation. But what about when something is genuinely funny?
That's when we upgrade to laughing. The source says laughing happens at things which are funny. It's a reaction, an involuntary release.
Okay, let's flip the coin. Sadness.
For that, the source identifies crying. And look at the triggers it mentions: being very unhappy or receiving bad news.
Bad news. That's a very specific context.
Yeah.
It frames crying as a reaction to an external event, not just an internal feeling.
It is. It's the physical manifestation of distress.
Now, there's one more expression mentioned, and it's one of my favorites because it's so contagious and socially dangerous.
You're talking about yawning.
Yawning. I'm trying not to do it just by saying the word.
Well, the source says the main cause is being tired, but it also lists a secondary cause. Sometimes people yawn when they're bored.
And that's the danger zone. You do not want to be caught yawning in an important meeting.
No, because perception is reality. You might just be tired, but the person speaking is going to think you're bored. It sends a message of disinterest.
I really hope no one is yawning during this deep dive.
If we're doing our jobs right, they shouldn't be.
So we have smiling, laughing, crying, yawning. All things the face does. But sometimes we use the whole head. Which brings us to nonverbal communication. Head movements. The binary code.
Yes versus no. And this is where cultural context is so important.
So in the context of this English source material, how do we say yes without speaking?
By nodding. The source defines that as moving the head up and down.
For no.
Shaking the head, moving it from side to side.
Up and down for yes, side to side for no. It feels so basic, so instinctual.
It feels that way. But the source includes a really important warning here. Did you catch it?
I did. It says, people in some countries nod their head to mean yes.
In some countries. That is a massive caveat. It's acknowledging this is not a universal human law. If you go to parts of Bulgaria or India, the gestures can mean something completely different.
So if you just assume nod equals yes everywhere, you could get into trouble.
You might agree to buy something you didn't want. The text is teaching English body language, but it's reminding you that it is a specific standard, not a universal truth.
That's a really sharp detail. Always check the local code for yes and no.
Precisely.
Okay, we've done body parts, breathing, the face, the head. Now for action. The source lists common expressions, but it means physical actions we do.
Right, verb phrases that involve the body. And this is where grammar and movement really collide. Let's look at greetings.
We have shaking hands and waving.
Now look at the prepositions. The text says you shake hands with someone,
With
but you wave to somebody.
two. Huh. I never really thought about that, but the grammar perfectly describes the physics of it.
It does. With implies contact, reciprocity. You can't shake hands alone. It's shared. It closes the gap.
And two implies distance.
Exactly. You project the wave at them. You don't need them to touch you. Two bridges the gap from afar.
That's brilliant. The grammar maps the physical space between people.
It's a subtle but powerful difference.
What about when we're not interacting? Just how we hold ourselves. The source mentions folding your arms.
A classic posture, just crossing the arms over the chest.
And psychologically, what does it usually mean?
Well, it's often seen as defensive, or maybe you're cold or just waiting. It sort of closes off the body.
And then we have the maintenance tasks.
Oh,
Grooming.
combing your hair, using a tool to tidy up.
And finally, one that links all the way back to the breathing section, the nose.
Blowing your nose.
A hygiene action. But it's a set phrase, isn't it? You don't say, I'm going to clean my nasal passage. You say, blow your nose.
And that's the value of looking at these phrases. They teach you the natural, everyday way to describe the physical world.
So let's just recap the map we've drawn. We started with the skin and that warning about the sun.
Then we mapped the face, chin versus cheek, and the upper body, highlighting the thumb as the special tool.
We moved down to the waist, hips, and bottom, then the legs, making sure we know an ankle from a heel and a toe from a thumb.
We talked about the rhythm of life breathing 12 to 15 times a minute and how we signal emotions like happiness, sadness, or boredom.
And finally, we covered the silent language of nodding and shaking and the common actions of shaking hands, waving, folding arms, and, yes, blowing your nose.
It's a pretty comprehensive toolkit for describing physical existence.
It really is. And what's so cool is we do all this stuff without even thinking.
And that connects to a bigger idea for me. We live in these bodies 24/7. You're breathing right now. You might be folding your arms. You nod when you agree with something. But how often do you actually stop to name the specific parts you're using?
That's true. We are completely on autopilot.
So maybe it's a challenge for you, the listener. Can you go through your day today and just mentally label the parts of yourself as you use them? When you pick up your coffee, think thumb, wrist, elbow. When you smile at a coworker, think, is this a happy smile or a polite smile?
Turning the subconscious into the conscious. I love that. It's a great way to actually make the vocabulary stick.
Well, knowledge is most valuable when you apply it, right? Even if it's just applied to your own reflection. When you can name your world, you understand it better, even if that world is just your own body.
Well, I'm definitely going to be thinking about my breathing rate for the next hour, so thank you for that.
You are very welcome.
Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like, and leave a comment to support the channel.